And finally, let's touch on the testing phase of the API. So again, from the definition, once you've defined the requests and the responses, you can also generate test cases directly from the contract itself. And when I say contract, of course, I hope people understand that's also alluding, I'm using definition and contract interchangeably. So the definition essentially defines what the API is supposed to do. So let's take the example of, once you have the definition in place, you can actually import that into a testing tool, like for example, Ready API. You can generate your test cases because again, operations are already defined. You can generate your test cases. But what's interesting though is there's a play of refactoring over here. As I mentioned, right, especially in an agile environment, your API code is going to be constantly changing when it's in beta or when it's not ready in production yet. And in that case, every time there's a change, you can actually refactor those changes directly because the contract gets updated first. So once your contract or your definition gets updated, those changes can automatically get mapped or pushed into Ready API, which you can then use to generate test cases from. So again, abstracting a lot of the hard work which you would have otherwise done without a definition. Without a definition, again, testers would have to understand what are the changes that have been made. They'd have to talk to developers and distributed teams. That's a whole other problem altogether. So this way, the definition makes sure all of these stakeholders are in sync, make sure that they know what are the changes that have been updated, and just ensures for a speedy and efficient process. So advantages of testing from the definition: reduces time to market by generating quick tests. It easily ties back to the development process, so you can actually easily refactor changes anytime anytime there's been updates. And finally, it actually mitigates risk. This is kind of obvious because while you're doing quality testing, especially if you have a public API in production, you want to ensure that it doesn't actually introduce any breaking changes to your production applications. We do have a tool like Ready API. Ready API is a API testing tool, a suite of tools by SmartBear software. Some of you might have heard of SOAP UI, which is one of the world's most popular automated REST and SOAP API testing tools. That's actually part of the Ready API suite of tools. And a lot of developers use this. And we're seeing a big use case of these developers and testers is to actually test OpenAPI or Swagger-based APIs. So so we're seeing a lot of adoption in the definition-driven approach as well.